All right, welcome back to the daily event. So we got a variety of topics on the old clipboard here today. As you can tell, this clipboard's been through quite a lot. This was back from like the lifeguarding days. It's like more, it's not more duct tape than it is clipboard, but there's a lot of duct tape on here. Probably some rust too. All right, so first things first on the list is the great media hemorrhaging. That's kind of how I summed it up. So a lot of these topics I've written down over the course of the last like 2 years, maybe year and a half. It might depend on how you frame it. Like, I don't know the exact date on when I wrote these down, but essentially I'll just preference it that way because there might be a lot of things where you're like, wow, you're a little late to that, bud. And to that I'd say, yeah, fair enough, late talking about it, but it came to mind around the proper time, hopefully. So essentially the great media hemorrhaging, what is that? That's kind of the term that I've used to encapsulate all the crap that we've seen in the last 2 years of like media in terms of like a general sense of entertainment, news, etc. Everything kind of contained in that ethos. Essentially, like the idea that we all, you see, it's interesting because I have to kind of maybe fight against the rose tinted glasses from time to time because we tend to remember things probably better than they were. Although I think sometimes we might be onto something. Just like how I think sometimes I'm onto something. But regardless, so we have these everything from film to TV shows to news. Like, chances are we have good memories of these things at some point. There was one point in time where most people could probably say that the news in general was fairly objective and trustworthy. If you're paying attention and well read enough, chances are you know that that's not really the case anymore, at least not with many mainstream outlets. A lot of people have their own angle, their own spin. Sometimes the spin really spins and sometimes it doesn't. And you kind of learn what each outlet kind of gauges the things worth putting a lot of spin on. So for example, like certain topics are kind of safe. Like in the technology sphere of things, if somebody's reporting on the new iPhone, chances are it's not going to be super slanted. But if somebody's reporting on an election, if somebody's reporting on climate, if somebody's reporting on abortion, any of the hot button issues, yeah, you're gonna see the slant probably pretty soon. And nowadays, I think one of the main things to hint on is that it's becoming more opinion than it is objective fact. And that, when you pride yourself as an objective fact-based organization, that can be an issue. It should be a major issue, right? Shouldn't it be? And so it's like, it's important to weigh all this when you're looking at what you're looking at. Like, basically start asking, like, why does this organization deserve your trust? Does it deserve your trust? And in terms of the hemorrhaging in other areas beyond just news, because I mean that one's pretty obvious, but I mean I guess this one's also obvious. You know, film, like I feel like, again, this might just be the nostalgia, but it's like I feel like movies on average used to be better. Now, this is like largely due to the increasing woke mass media culture, and by that I mean like in the sense of like there is the elites that have a given agenda, or the message as some call it, that they're pushing, right? And that can sometimes affect the movie so much that it like sours it. And sometimes it's just subtle things, but like even those subtle things can sour the movie taste overall, or at least that scene. And it's like, did you really have to do that? Like, one of the things I have on here is the movie Free Guy. Like, by and large, that movie is pretty good. Like, there's not a whole lot of agenda-based stuff in there, but there's this one scene that's really obvious and on the nose, and it's like, did you really have to do that? It was essentially the scene where like the dude's it's been a while since I've seen the movie, but like the dude's talking about how like he went to MIT and he graduated, and then he started on a game project, and then I can't remember, but essentially, like, spoilers by the way if you haven't seen the movie, essentially their idea for this game project got stolen. And then like he gives me a few other details, and then like this guy who the movie introduces to you as this guy's friend, like one of his good friends, right, all of a sudden out of nowhere completely changes tone from like most of the rest of the movie, and it's like, wow, that sounds, I can't remember, he says something along the lines, he says, wow, that sounds like blah 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 and super white privilege. And it's like it felt so out of place compared to his tone in the rest of the movie. And right after that scene, he basically goes back to how he was acting before. But like, you know what I mean? It's like there's these scenes that get injected into films that feel really out of place. And it's like, did you need to put that in there? Did you absolutely have to put that in there? And it's like, you could kind of tell when it's just an ideological driven comment, when it's a comment that is, you know, very woke in nature and not necessary, but it's like you're trying to get brownie points with like the people on Twitter that who knows if they even are supporting your film or TV show in the first place. And I think what's happening right now with at least what I'm hearing about what's going on in film and TV, a lot of these woke projects are just failing. One of the things that surprised me is that it took 2 years for things to actually fail or start to fail hard. And initially, one of my concerns, I think this is another topic on the list, is that I was concerned around like somewhere in 2020 that this wasn't going to fail hard enough. And by that, I literally mean, I feel like when it comes to this wokeness in films, and like, let's give some nuance. Beyond just difference of opinion, because people can have different opinions, obviously people do. People believe differently, and like, we gotta like try to do our best to like, if possible, live in peace with one another. Right? And so as a result, you have what is an excessive kind of taking of this, where it's like you're so overt about it, about the woke ideology, that, yeah, very off-putting, and as a result, just, yeah, can sour everything. And like, the fact that it took this long for things to start failing, like, the fact that this even lasted more or less 2 years, like, not every project did, but there's a lot of things that lasted like probably way longer than they should have. And it's like, however they pulled that off, who knows? You could make theories, but regardless, I digress. So you have these scenes that kind of ruin movies that don't need to be there, or not necessarily ruin movies, but they take away from the experience. And I think, like, a good point, and this is like what the quartering has touched on before, is escapism, right? If films continue to become less and less of an escape for people, don't be surprised when less and less people watch them. Because if somebody goes to see an action movie or whatever to be entertained, and then they get the same indoctrination they're getting from their HR department at work, that they already are like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Do you think that that's going to help you sell more tickets or less? And so it's like, when you, like, I think maybe now people are going to finally start to fess up to the fact, okay, if we want to start making money or more money again, like we used to, maybe we should just focus on writing just genuinely good stories, fun movies, like enjoyable all-around things that are not trying to single out things too much or target certain things too much. And you could, again, give some nuance to what is the kind of movie. If the movie is about a very certain serious topic, okay, certain things might be like essentially like more understandable in terms of what the topics that are covered in the writing is. But it's like, if you're going to see an action movie and you're going to make it about, you know, oh, why are there so many toxic males in the workplace? Can you guys please stop eating so much red meat? You're killing all the giraffes. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, first of all, who eats giraffe? But second, that's beside the point. And it's like, you know, it's an action movie. Have fun with it. You know what I mean? And it's not rocket science. And so that is kind of where we're at there. I'll kind of, I guess, move on. Essentially, the media hemorrhaging is everything more or less that we've come to know and love over the years. All of a sudden is just like falling apart at the seams, because I guess you could chalk it up to a lot of people are now in charge that either don't get it or don't care, maybe a mix of two and some other things. But it's like, it's probably fair to say it ain't George Lucas and Spielberg and the gang setting the standard anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they're still there, obviously. Well, I mean, I think George might be retired, I'm not sure, probably. But, and you see what happened to his franchise after. But, yeah, like, that's a whole other topic about, like, the lack of respect for legacy franchises. But that's a whole other rant that I'll probably get to later. So essentially, that more or less is the great media hemorrhaging and a few other topics covered. And so I'll leave that there. Till next time, this has been The Daily Vent.